What's up, guys? This is RJ Game News USA here, and today we're gonna go over the news and announcements from this Nintendo Direct of March 2025. This is significant because this is the very last Nintendo Direct for the Switch 1. Next week, we have the Switch 2 presentation. So, this is like getting the last announcements out for the Switch 1. The really last bit of Switch 1 stuff. And there's so much I learned from this Direct by what was there and what wasn't there. So we're going to go over that today. So please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And let's jump into it. First of all, let me say there were a ton of announcements for like indie games, Japanese games, small games, a bunch of games I'm not even going to mention here. If you want to see those games, they were on several of the sizzle reels during this Direct. You could just watch the Direct. I just want to cut to the major announcements, some things that piqued my interest or I think overall maybe surprised me, or things that we need to talk about. So with that being said, we're going to jump straight into the first thing they shown, which was Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD Remake, coming in 2025. So, this is the same studio that did like Octopath Traveler and a few of these other HD 2D Square Enix games. And I'm excited to see, more of those kind of games. I really like the look of the HD 2D stuff. I know some people, it's worn out their welcome. No date on this, which you're going to see that being a theme here with a lot of the bigger announcements. Where's the date? Where's the date? Well, probably because it's post-Switch 2 launch. This game is probably a double edition game. Which we did find out there are basically, essentially, editions of games. Now, when it comes to the Switch 2, I don't know if these editions mean it's an upgrade path that costs you $10. If it's a free upgrade for certain games. Like, for instance, if you have Breath of the Wild, and you have, you play it on your Switch 2, we now know it's not just Switch 1 Breath of the Wild on a Switch 2, that it could possibly have an upgrade path to a Switch 2 edition. Question is, will that be free, or will that be a $10 upcharge? We've seen Sony do a $10 upcharge. We've seen Microsoft, for the most part, allow it to be free. We've also seen PlayStation remastering PS4 games on the PS5, which I think is a sucky business practice. And I really don't want to see stuff on the Switch 2 get full-blown re-releases with, box art and press and coverage and any of that. I don't want to see, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Switch 2 version. No, get that the fuck out. It's gotta be, I would hope a free upgrade from your Switch to your Switch 2 when it comes to additions for games. But that's a story for another day. We're gonna have to find out details on that. More things interesting on that later. The second announcement that I want to talk about is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Now, this game looked phenomenal. Now, as I was watching the presentation live, it looked really choppy, and I was worried the frame rate was bad. I went back later and watched the presentation, and that wasn't the case. It was just the stream had issues, I suppose, because when I went back and watched it, everything was cool. We got a lot of answers about this. A lot of answers. So, the release date wasn't shown. Just said 2025. So, since it wasn't shown, I have a feeling the release date is the same day the Switch 2 comes out. I believe this is going to be a cross-gen title. We've already seen Nintendo do this for years. You know, we saw Twilight Princess come on the GameCube and the Wii, right? From the Wii U to the Switch, Breath of the Wild was that game. So I believe there'll be a Switch 1 edition and a Switch 2 edition. And we have no idea if Switch 2 games are going to bump up to $70 while Switch 1 games are still $60 or what. These are questions we do not know. If that's true, I could see the $10 upgrade path being likely. Or if you don't do the upgrade, at the very least, you can play your Switch 1 games on your Switch 2 without any enhancements. So, we'll have to see what Nintendo does there. The full game takes place in a single planet. This was a big deal to me to figure out. I'm glad that's the case. I wasn't a huge fan of Metroid Prime 3 going to different planets. I'd rather have one built-out world. In that world, Samus will receive psychic abilities that open doors, and certain ways you can use beams at enemies. And I think this is great, because progression goes through scanning stone relics and carving a path forward. So, it might be a slight twist to the typical Metroid Prime formula, but it's sort of the same idea of you have to do certain things to progress, to open more doors, to progress. And I think, for the most part, it's going to be a pretty streamlined experience. I can't tell if it's going to be even more of a straightforward path in this game, or less of a straightforward path than Metroid Prime, but we'll have to see. I think that it's probably being done cleverly. So you're not completely batting your head against the wall because you can't find a certain missile. But I do think that there's still going to be lots of nooks and crannies to find upgrades, for sure. And I am excited to see what the psychic abilities do bring to the table. I saw part of the trailer where Samus shot some missiles out, and she's able to guide the missiles after she shoots them and not hit 3 enemies at once. So yeah, I like that. I was impressed with the gameplay. I like the visual styles of it. I'm super excited for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I've been waiting for years. Can't wait. One news of note, though, there is no sign of multiplayer. So, I was holding out hope, even up until today, where I was hoping multiplayer would be a thing on Metroid Prime 4. It was a thing on Metroid Prime 2, split screen. People didn't really use it. I used it. Metroid Prime Hunters had multiplayer. I was hoping we'd get some form of multiplayer here, especially whenever the Switch 1 has a user base of 150 plus million, and on the Switch 2, if it goes there, it could have a long life after its release. But sadly, no multiplayer. However, if they're able to make a really good 20, 30-hour campaign, I'm fine with it. Okay? I mean, I would love multiplayer to be there. But not if it took any longer to develop the game, or not if it took anything away from what they're doing in the single-player game. For all we know, this could be 40 to 50 hours. It could be a more fleshed-out Metroid. I wouldn't count on it being too long, but maybe to 100% it will be. Then we got to talk about Pokemon Legends ZA. Immediately, I have to do my same criticisms I've had of Pokemon games. The frame rate was bad, the performance looked bad, the graphics looked horrible. Like, it's fitting this will be a Switch 1 game, because they did say the release date was late 2025. So since they emphasized the late part, this probably comes out after the Switch 2 is already out, but it'll be a Switch 1 game. And Pokemon's been known for doing that. They did that a lot, where the next system's out, but they still put out a game for the older system that had the bigger install base. I have no respect for the Pokemon Company. They flat out suck at making games. They do. They have a good concept, of a game that's popular and people like. And it's a property that's really great. But I feel like Pokemon would be so much better served if it was put in the hands of, let's say, a Monolith Soft. Although I'd rather Monolith Soft work on Xenoblade. If Monolith Soft or a studio that was as good or similar to Monolith Soft took over Pokemon, the game would be phenomenal. The game would actually be technically sound. The game would be graphically impressive. And the frame rate wouldn't be dog shit. So yeah, those are my criticisms of Pokemon ZA. I don't plan on buying it. But there is one thing it did have that piqued my interest a little bit. And that's the ZA Royale they showed off. It looks like a multiplayer where trainers come in and they see each other and they battle. And when you win, you rank up. I believe if you lose, you might rank down. But I know for sure if you win, you rank up. And your rank starts at Z and you got to work your way up to A. And if you get to A, you get like some special wish, they said. So there's like a reward there. And so I think that's interesting. I'm curious to know if losses will drag your rank down just as much as wins drag your rank up, or can you never go back down? Because that's a big deal. Because if your rank just goes up all the time, then that just means that you played the game a long time. If your rank could go up or down, especially if it's equal points both ways, then that shows that you're really skilled if you keep ranking up. So that's why I like shooters like Halo, for instance, where you have ranks like that, and you have a level up system. So like you could be ranked with people that you should be ranked with, but you also have career progression as well. Or Halo 3, for instance. Then we have another announcement, a big one here. Virtual game cards. They allow you to send games to a second system, including your Nintendo Switch 2. Okay. At first, I didn't know what the fuck this was. I figured you already have your digital library. So I'm like, what is this gimmick? What is this gimmick? Well, apparently, there's an update coming in late April. And you can also lend out games to a friend for 14 days. And the game is automatically returned to you after. You could just lend one game, one friend, for 14 days at a time. So I like this. This is interesting. I think it's pretty neat. I think it's cool. I don't know how many people will use this feature, but I'm always a fan of adding features where it makes sense. And this is really neat. And then being able to switch games from one system to another. Maybe this is how they do Switch 2 backwards compatibility. I don't know. There's more questions than answers on this one a little bit. The timing of it's a little odd to present all this at this presentation, not the next one, because it feels like we're only getting half the answers. I threw this in there in my notes because I can't believe this is happening. But High on Life is coming to the Switch on May 6th. I've already played it on Xbox. I've played it on PlayStation. Second playthrough, I didn't quite go all the way through on stream, but I got pretty far in it. I love High on Life, and I'm stunned they're able to make this actually work on the Switch 1. I figured if it's going to get ported, it's probably going to get ported to the Switch 2. But I have a feeling the frame rate's going to be horrible. Horrible. But that's good for people that only have a Switch that get to play High on Life now. Just wanted to throw that in there. And then, really the last announcement I want to talk about that matters is this Nintendo Today app. Now, when they first started to announce this, I thought, is this going to be like the Miiverse replacement? Is this going to be like the social media of Nintendo? And it is, but not really, because it's not really users posting stuff. It's just the company. It's the company giving you updates. You know, like, yeah, they already do Twitter updates. You can already see the Nintendo Direct. But now on your phone, you could download the Nintendo Today app, and every day they'll post stuff in there and give you updates on things. Well, that shit's going to get reshared everywhere else anyway. But, so I almost decided to download this app, but I decided not to. I don't think I need it. But, I do think it's interesting. I do think there's still going to be a social media Nintendo thing in the works. I do. Although I really wish Nintendo would just embrace being able to stream straight from, let's say, a Switch 2 to YouTube. That would be awesome. That would be my dream come true. You guys would get Nintendo Switch 2 streams all fucking day, every day. I swear. But if they don't, we're going to have to stick with PlayStation. And after the April 2nd presentation, news will be delivered directly to the app available for download now. So it's available for download now, but you can't really do much with it. Not really a whole lot's happening until after the Nintendo Switch 2 presentation. So it did feel like they wanted to get, you know, a lot of stuff out of the way. One other game announcement they did say, Tomodachi Life The Living Dream is coming in 2026. There was another game like Rhythm Heaven that was announced for 2026. These games are like not my cup of tea at all. So I'm perfectly cool with them going only to Switch 1 and in 2026. It gives people some reason to still hang on to their Switches. It gives some people, you know, who are fans of those series some excitement. Or maybe they're not quite ready to go to a Switch 2, that they're not completely in a desert like the Wii U was after the Switch came out, or the Wii was after the Wii U came out. So they're not completely in a desert. You know, there's something for those people to play until they finally can upgrade. Not everybody has the means or the money or can find the stock in order to find a Switch 2 right away. So I think it's good to see Nintendo supporting the Switch 1 for what looks like at least a year post-Switch 2 launch. However, and I do say however, I've always been cool with a year. Anything more than that is total, complete bullshit, and I don't think Nintendo will do that. PlayStation and Xbox have let the PS4 and the Xbox One last way too fucking long for my liking. Way too many cross-gen games, and way too many remasters of PS4 games to PS5, for example. Unnecessary. Unnecessary. Both of those things piss me the fuck off. I don't want to see either of those things on the Switch 2. Like, talking about the future of the Switch 2, for instance. I do not want to see Breath of the Wild remastered for the Switch 2. Just a simple upgrade path or something. Backwards compatibility upgrade path is good enough. I don't want to see any Switch games getting remastered or remade to the Switch 2. That's stupid as fuck. However, I do think because we didn't see Fire Emblem here, we didn't see Twilight Princess, we didn't see Wind Waker, we didn't see Kirby Planet Robobot, Fire Emblem, I already said that I think, F-Zero GX. I don't think any of those games are getting remastered and put on the Switch. I think the Switch has announced everything that's really even very relevant for the Switch. That's it, guys. It's like if you took a washcloth and you drowned it in water, and the water is games, right? And over the years, it's been dripping with a bunch of games, right? What this presentation was a wringing out of the washcloth. And the last drips have been drip-fed out to you. That's what the Switch 1 presentation was today. And I hope this means, that means the Switch 2 is also going to be getting remasters and remakes of games. Like that Fire Emblem game they've talked about. That's got to be coming. Maybe this year. Maybe those two Zelda games that people mentioned for years, Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, maybe they get combo packed and remastered for the Switch 2. Possibly this year. Maybe Kirby Planet Robobot has been heavily rumored. I thought that was a Switch 1 remaster for sure. I could have put money on that fact that we were going to see it in this presentation, and maybe they would have said, yo guys, it's coming out in like May or something. Nope. So maybe that's coming to the Switch 2. I would like to see future 3DS and Wii games and Wii U games. Only those 3 systems. Remastered and remade to the Switch 2. The Wii U doesn't have a lot left to remaster and throw on the Switch 2. But the 3DS has stuff. Like Samus Returns, that 3DS Metroid game they had. And the Wii has stuff they could throw on there. But I really hope, guys, on the NSO, we do end up getting GameCube and DS games. It's time. Instead of seeing all these GameCube games getting remastered and thrown on the Switch 2, I understand we did it with some GameCube games for the Switch, but just give us the Switch 2 lineup of GameCube games and DS games. Don't remaster and remake them and sell it to us for $40 a pop or $60 a pop. Just give us the NSO titles. NSO might have to be different, guys. I've really looked into it. You can't sit there. I know the Switch 2 might have 250 gigabytes of memory. Or 500 gigabytes of memory. I'm not sure. But you can't sit there and put a whole shitload of GameCube games in a single app. Because some of those games are, 1.5 gigs. Right? And if you have so many, you're not going to have a 150 gig app chonging up the system. So, do we perhaps see NSO end? Just end? And then all the games are sold a la carte? Do they just bring back the Virtual Console? Or do they make NSO one tier? 2 tiers. One tier where you just have online access, right? And then another tier, which is all the different systems of games, of classics you could play, but only the ones we currently have. But then GameCube games and DS games are a la carte. So could we see a mixed system? Or do they go ahead and just put DS and GameCube games in the expansion pack and just jump up the price? I don't know how this is going to work, and I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. One thing I can tell you for sure, though, is I don't want them to sit on their hands with it. I was not happy with how long it took for Nintendo to get classic games onto the Switch. It took too long to get Super Nintendo on there, for instance. I don't want to relive that again. Bare minimum, all the stuff that's already on the Switch should be on the Switch too, right? But I would love to see stuff like GameCube and DS day one. Whether that's a la carte purchases you need to make, or in a Virtual Console system for all of it, or whether it's a mixed system with NSO games that we already have, and then a la carte for GameCube and DS, or whether it's NSO for everything. It needs to be done quickly. Very fast. And so, my final thoughts. Guys, this presentation may not have been the best, but we did need this presentation. I did not know we needed this presentation until we had it, but we definitely did. Because we definitely got some answers that and we got a lot of stuff out of the way now, right? So the Switch 1's not completely abandoned after Xenoblade X. We know some stuff that's going there, including a bunch of little games, a bunch of Japanese-looking games, a bunch of indie games, and then some big announcements too. Some games that look potentially cross-gen. Of course, we finally got a little more gameplay details of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which is the best thing I've seen out of the presentation. But the decks are cleared now, okay? You can really put a book and wrap a bow on the Switch 1 era. Because next week, the Switch 2 era begins. It doesn't begin at launch. It really begins at this presentation, where we're going to see new games and we're going to get some answers. So until next time, guys, I will see you later. RJ out. Have a good one.